Before we get started on this one, I'm just going to say quickly that this unaired race at Pocono from NASCAR Heat 5 is simply for a backdrop because this is the first time I'm doing a video that has nothing inherently to do with racing or aviation, my two primary interests, the latter being a future career path I'm going to be taking. This is just really sort of acting as a backdrop, so you can feel free to ignore it and just sort of go about watching this like a podcast or something like that. So, as we get started, there is a third interest that, while I didn't quite allude to it, did say first two interests, that implies that there are other things, and that would be I have had an absolute fascination over the last couple months in the SCP Foundation, which is a fictional online writing wiki, sorta. On its primary base that I read off of is on Wikidot. They do have, I think, I did come across one while researching one SCP where I think they might have a central central individual sorry, I'm just sort of tripping over my words here because I'd planned what I was going to say when we get into the main topic of the video, and yes, we will get around to that, but there might be a main site that isn't Wikidot, though on Wikipedia I think it says its main site is on Wikidot. Anyway, we're almost 2 minutes into this video, so we'll get to the meat of what I'm going to say, and for this one, we're talking about one of my favorites and how to possibly beat it, that being SCP-973, better known as Smokey. The title of the video is What It Is, What It Does, and How to Beat It. What it is. Yeah, let's get started. Sorry, I think I might need to go full screen on this just to... What it is. SCP-973-1 is a police cruiser of the state that it is set in. Such information has been redacted from the Foundation from the 1970s that is reported to be in an extreme state of disrepair, with dents having been seen all over the car, such as the hood and doors. And one thing that is known about SCP-973-1 itself is that it is extremely fast. No car that has gone up against has been able to outrun it. There's no reason to think that it has a weak spot, but I mean, it manifests on a highway, so... I mean, I study motorsports a lot. I see what it looks like when those F1 cars tear around cops. I can't picture anything other than an F1 car doing that, so you may be able to outrun it if you play your cards right, but we'll get to that part a little bit later. SCP-973-2 is a humanoid entity, described as a Caucasian male, balding, overweight, and in his late 40s. Sporting a handlebar mustache and a pair of aviator sunglasses, though it usually only strikes at night between the hours of, I think it was 2230 and 0400, or just 2200 and 0400. And only on a specific stretch of highway, though the most disturbing part about the whole thing is that they have been noticed to be expanding. But back to the description of SCP-973-2 itself. It wears a police uniform from the early 1970s from the state where it is, and has been reported by eyewitnesses to have glowing red eyes and a gaping mouth with no gums, teeth, or tongue. What it does to its victims, and we're going to get to this in the next segment, isn't exactly something I want to go into detail on this channel. I mean, I have been fascinated with the SCP Foundation for some time, but I don't want to go quite that far just yet. In fact, I don't even know if licensing is going to be a problem. We'll just upload this one and see what happens. What it does. SCP-973 manifests at night when a civilian, typically civilian, vehicle exceeds a certain speed. This has been seen anywhere from 35 to 70 miles an hour, averaging around 55. If a vehicle exceeds this speed, SCP-973 will then manifest 0.4 kilometers or 400 meters behind the target. Once this happens, the police lights will then activate, telling the person that they are being pulled over, and then anomalously transmit a message over to the radio of the fleeing car saying, "You'd better run," often accompanied by a few choice words. After that, SCP-973 will engage in pursuit with the target, who will then normally flee. This is not known to be due to any sort of mind-warping effect by the entity, but again, if you were to be chased by a cop with the words coming over the radio, "You'd better run," yeah, I'd be scared enough to try to run. And especially knowing what this entity is, like I do, yeah, you'd probably want to run. Unless it's a real police officer, then you don't want to do that. But I think you could get off by reason of insanity, though we are straying kind of far from the topic here. After no more than 6 minutes, SCP-973 will be able to stop the target and engage in its activity, in which, after an unspecified period of time, SCP-973-2 will exit SCP-973-1 and walk over to the driver's side of the target car, and then just wait there for a little bit, then shove his face through your window, lower his glasses, show his mouth, and then, well, let's just say, may God have mercy on the souls of the target for whatever happens next. In few cases, the bodies have been so badly mangled that they are beyond visual identification. Now, this isn't particularly freaky because I have been studying air accidents which usually involve fires, so to think of that isn't exactly as disturbing to me, but that's just sort of a side comment to sort of lighten the rather dark nature of what the SCP Foundation is. And oh yeah, that looked like that hurt. Anyway, where was I? Yeah. There have been 34 individuals and 19 vehicles having been documented as being victims of SCP-973, with vehicles showing severe signs of burn damage on the interior, and the bodies once again showing signs of severe physical violence. Ways to possibly beat it. This is pretty fun. As you can see in the video, the NASCAR Cup Series spec cars are pretty fast, but I don't know if they're faster than SCP-973. You either need something very fast or very big and bulky that won't be affected by something as light as a state trooper car. One commenter on YouTube, let me see if I can get them up, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Braham Miguel Amoris replied, "Lo, I'll use an APC and crush its car." This is kind of an interesting take, but well, I don't know. I don't know how fast APCs go, but I don't think they go 35 miles an hour, let alone 55, or fast enough to trigger SCP-973, and I don't understand what phase in which you'd want to crush its car. I mean, I guess the one thing you can do is to stop right away, wait for it to stop, and then reverse over it. I mean, yeah, as absurd as that sounds, that does sound more viable than getting an F1 car, per se, and trying to outrun it with that. An F1 car, I think, could possibly outrun it. Yeah, but I don't know. Second way to beat it, most mundane and probably the most likely to go wrong, is to just stay under 35 miles per hour under all circumstances. This would probably get you a ticket, given that you'd be going half the speed of most US freeways, unless this is something like Texas, in which you are really screwed. Yeah, keeping it under 35. I mean, you could try... Another idea I have is you could wait for a long stretch of road. It gets right up to your rear bumper, kind of like what you see Kaz Grala doing in the video, down the straight. Swerve out of its way, hit the brakes, do a handbrake turn, and then drive the other direction. See if that doesn't buy you at least a little bit of time to get back to civilization or something like that. Because who knows if it'll de-manifest when you get into a populated area. I assume it would, because this hasn't been tested or figured out or anything like that. But you could possibly turn around, go the other direction as fast as possible, and hopefully an SCP Foundation agent will see you and respond to your predicament, possibly rescue you from it. Though, I mean, yeah, all you have to do is disable the car, then the guy's worthless. The next was my favorite before I came up with what I'm going to talk about as the last potential method to beat it, and that is you wait until it is standing outside of your car, you roll down the window, you sort of wave to him with some sort of gang sign, you tell him, "Arrivederci," and then just gun it. That'll at the very least buy you some time, at most cause it to break pursuit. I don't know if anyone's tried this, because the general public is technically not supposed to know about its existence. So I don't know how viable it actually is. But yeah, that's one option. And the final option is my absolute favorite. You take a bunch of weapons and friends with you in your car, and, well, when you see it coming behind you, you simply open fire. I mean, I would say ordinarily that you shouldn't do this, but for the purpose of the hypothetical scenario in which you have to, or for some reason want to, defeat SCP-973, gotta make sure you have a couple rocket-propelled grenades, machine guns. I mean, I would say bring a railgun, but that just wouldn't work, especially not in a passenger vehicle that's supposed to be able to go fast enough to trigger this entity. Yeah, this is just sort of my first video in which I wanted to expand outside the world of motorsports, my own personal world of motorsports, and if you've read the fantasy roster in the description, which I recommend you do, because I'll look absolutely insane if you don't. Yeah, when I said Kaz Grala, he took over the 48 in lieu of Alex Bowman on my fantasy roster. Ross Chastain driving the 42. Some of these inspired by real life, others totally not. I mean, now I'm just sort of getting off the focus of the video. Yeah, the SCP Foundation, I might do more videos if copyright isn't a problem. This has been Mr. Wilson 25, and I will see you all in the future.